Welcome to Pigeon Healthy. Tonight, while you sleep, your pigeons are being attacked. Thousands of tiny vampires are crawling out of every crack and crevice in your loft. They swarm over your birds in the darkness, pierce their skin, and drink their blood for hours. By morning, the attackers have disappeared back into hiding, leaving your birds anemic, stressed, and slowly dying. Your birds can't tell you what's happening. They can't escape. They just suffer night after night until their bodies give out, or you finally discover what's been tormenting them. I'm talking about red mites, Dermanyssus gallinae, and they're one of the most devastating parasites in pigeon keeping. Red mites are different from other parasites. They don't live on the bird, they live in the environment, in the loft structure itself, and only come out at night to feed. This makes them incredibly difficult to detect, and even harder to eliminate. Most keepers don't realize they have red mites until the infestation is severe and birds are already suffering. By then, the mites number in the hundreds of thousands or even millions, hiding in every crack in the wood, every gap in the wire, every corner of nest boxes. At that point, elimination requires extreme measures and months of persistent effort. But it doesn't have to get that bad. If you understand red mites, know how to detect them early, and implement proper control measures, you can keep your loft free of these parasites, or manage small infestations before they explode. Today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about red mites, their biology and life cycle, how to detect them even when they're hiding, the damage they cause to your birds, how to eliminate an existing infestation, and most importantly, how to prevent them from ever establishing in the first place. Let's start with what red mites are and how they live. Red mites are tiny arachnids, related to spiders and ticks, measuring less than 1 millimeter long when unfed. They're almost invisible to the naked eye unless you're looking carefully. When unfed, they're pale gray or whitish. After feeding on blood, they turn red or dark brown, which is where the name comes from. Red mites have a life cycle that goes from egg to larva to nymph to adult, and the entire cycle can complete in as little as 7 days under warm conditions, or stretch to several weeks in cooler temperature. Here's the critical point about their behavior. Red mites are nocturnal and only feed on birds at night. During the day, they hide in the loft structure. They prefer dark, protected cracks and crevices where they won't be disturbed. Common hiding places include cracks in wooden perches and nest boxes, gaps between boards or panels, behind or under metal fittings and hinges, inside hollow tubing or pipe perches, under roof tiles or roofing felt, in any rough surfaces where they can grip and hide, behind equipment or storage items in the loft, and in accumulated dust or debris in corners. At night, when it's dark and the birds are roosting and still, the mites emerge. They crawl onto the birds, pierce the skin with their mouth parts, and feed on blood for anywhere from 30 minutes to several hours. A single mite doesn't drink much blood, but a heavy infestation can have thousands of mites feeding on a single bird in one night. After feeding, the engorged mites return to their hiding places in the loft structure to digest their meal and reproduce. Female mites lay eggs in these hiding places. The eggs hatch into larvae, which develop into nymphs, which mature into adults, and the cycle continues. Red mites can survive for months without feeding. This is crucial to understand for control purposes. Even if you remove all the birds from the loft, red mites can wait. They'll sit dormant in their hiding places for 5, 6, 7 months, waiting for a blood meal to return. Then the moment birds are back in the loft, the mites emerge and the infestation resumes. This is why red mite infestations are so persistent, and why eliminating them requires not just treating the birds but thoroughly treating the entire loft environment repeatedly. How do red mites get into your loft in the first place? They're introduced, almost always, from outside sources. Common introduction routes include bringing in new birds from another loft that has mites. The mites hitchhike on the bird or in a transport crate. Using second-hand equipment like nest boxes, perches, or cages from another loft that's infested. Wild birds, especially sparrows, starlings, or other species that nest near or in the loft structure, can carry mites. Rodents, particularly rats and mice that may harbor mites. Even on your own clothing or equipment, if you visited an infested loft and mites crawled onto your clothes or gear. Once introduced, even a few mites can establish an infestation because they reproduce rapidly under favorable conditions. Warmth and availability of blood meals cause populations to explode. One study found that a single female mite could produce a population of over 1 million descendants in 8 weeks under optimal conditions. That's exponential growth, and it's why a minor problem becomes a major crisis so quickly. What damage do red mites cause? The most obvious effect is blood loss. When thousands of mites feed nightly, birds lose significant amounts of blood over time. This causes anemia, which manifests as pale combs and wattles. If your pigeon breed has visible combs, weakness, and lethargy, reduced performance in racing birds, poor growth in young birds, and in severe cases, death, especially in squabs or weakened adults who can't sustain the blood loss. Beyond blood loss, the constant stress of being attacked nightly severely impacts health. Birds can't rest properly. They're restless at night, constantly moving and trying to escape the mites, which prevents restorative sleep. Chronic stress suppresses the immune system, making birds susceptible to infections. Feather quality declines. Birds may become irritable or aggressive. Breeding pairs may abandon nests because the constant irritation makes them too stressed to sit properly. Egg production and fertility decline. Red mites also transmit diseases. They can carry and transmit bacteria, viruses, and other blood parasites from bird to bird. If one bird in the loft has a disease, red mites feeding on that bird and then on others can spread the infection throughout the flock. The bites themselves can become infected, causing skin lesions and dermatitis. In severe infestations, birds may develop crusty, scabby patches on their skin, particularly around the vent, under the wings, and on the legs, from constant mite feeding and secondary bacterial infection. How do you know if you have red mites? Early detection is critical, but it's challenging because mites hide during the day when you're most likely to be inspecting your loft. Here are detection methods. The most reliable way is to inspect the loft at night with a flashlight. Wait until full dark, at least 2 hours after sunset when birds are settled and mites are active. Take a bright flashlight and examine perches, nest boxes, and walls. Look for movement. Red mites crawling on surfaces look like tiny moving dots, grayish or reddish. Check birds directly. Gently pick up a bird and examine its body, particularly around the vent, under the wings, and on bare skin areas. Look for tiny mites crawling on the skin or gathering in feather bases. During the day, you can check hiding places. Run a white cloth or paper towel along cracks in perches, corners of nest boxes, and gaps in structure. If mites are present, you'll see tiny smears or streaks on the white material. These may be reddish-brown from engorged mites or grayish from unfed ones. Check for mite droppings, which look like tiny gray or black specks in corners, cracks, or where mites congregate. These specks are digested blood. Examine perches closely. Red mites often gather at the ends of perches or in. You may see clusters of tiny dots that look like dirt, but are actually mites. Use a sticky trap method. Place strips of white tape, sticky side up, in areas where you suspect mites. Leave overnight. In the morning, check the tape. Mites crossing it will stick and be visible. Place a white sheet of paper or cardboard under perches overnight. In the morning, check for mites that may have fallen or droppings that accumulate. Monitor bird behavior. If birds are restless at night, reluctant to roost, or constantly preening and moving, consider mites as a possible cause. Look for signs on the birds themselves. Pale skin or mucous membrane suggesting anemia, feather damage or loss, particularly around the vent, scabs or crusty lesions on skin. Weight loss despite adequate feeding, lethargy and weakness, reduced performance or productivity. Increased mortality, especially of young birds or during breeding season. If you find even a few mites, assume you have an infestation. Mites reproduce so quickly that a few become thousands in weeks. Immediate action is required. Now let's discuss how to eliminate an existing infestation. This is not a one-time treatment. Red mite control requires repeated applications over several weeks to kill adults, nymphs, and newly hatching larvae. The goal is to break the reproductive cycle. Chemical control using acaricides is the most reliable method for severe infestations. Effective chemicals include permethrin, a synthetic pyrethroid that kills mites on contact and has residual effect. It's available as sprays or concentrates that you dilute and apply to the loft structure. It's relatively safe for birds if used according to directions. Ivermectin can be applied as a spray to loft surfaces or given systemically to birds, though systemic treatment is less effective against red mites, since they don't live on the bird full-time. Pyrethrins are natural compounds from chrysanthemum flowers that kill mites, often combined with piperonyl bidoxide to enhance effectiveness. Safer than synthetic chemicals but less residual effect. Carbaryl dust is an older insecticide effective against mites. Apply to cracks, crevices, and hiding places. Use with caution as it's moderately toxic. Sulfur, either as powder or lime sulfur solution, has acariciidal properties and can be applied to loft surfaces. It's safer than many chemicals but has a strong odor. Application protocol for chemical treatment requires you to remove all birds from a loft temporarily if possible, or at minimum ensure they won't contact wet chemical surfaces until dry. Remove all movable items, perches, nest boxes, feeders, waterers. Treat these separately. Clean the loft thoroughly first. Sweep out all debris, old bedding, and droppings. Mites hide in this material. Apply the chosen acaricide according to product instructions. Focus on cracks, crevices, corners, joints, anywhere mites could hide. Spray or dust liberally. Pay special attention to perch ends, inside nest boxes, gaps in structure, behind fittings. Allow the treatment to dry completely before returning birds. This usually takes several hours. Repeat treatment after 7 to 10 days to kill newly hatched mites that weren't killed in the first application because they were still in eggs. Eggs are resistant to most chemicals, but the mites hatching from them are vulnerable. Repeat again after another 7 to 10 days. 3 treatments, 7 to 10 days apart, breaks the life cycle. Monitor carefully and retreat if mites reappear. For birds themselves, if they're heavily infested with mites, you can treat them directly. Permethrin sprays formulated for birds can be lightly misted onto the bird, avoiding the face. Ivermectin can be given orally or applied topically, though consult dosage carefully as overdose is toxic. Pyrethrin dusts can be applied to feathers. Bathing birds in warm water with a small amount of mild soap can help drown and remove mites, though this doesn't provide lasting protection. Now let's talk about natural and non-toxic control methods. These are safer for birds and handlers but require more effort and persistence. Diatomaceous earth. Food grade is a powder made from fossilized algae. It works mechanically, not chemically. The microscopic sharp edges of DE particles damage the waxy coating on mites, causing them to dehydrate and die. Apply DE liberally to all surfaces, cracks, crevices, and hiding places in the loft. Dust perches, nest boxes, corners. Leave it in place. Reapply weekly or after rain or moisture. DE is completely safe for birds and humans, but wear a mask when applying to avoid inhaling the fine dust. Heat treatment is extremely effective because red mites cannot survive temperatures above 45 to 50 degrees Celsius. If you can heat the loft to this temperature for several hours, it will kill all mites and eggs. This can be done with industrial heaters, though it requires removing birds and ensuring the loft structure can withstand the heat. More practically, you can use a steam cleaner to steam treat perches, nest boxes, and accessible surfaces. The steam kills mites on contact. Freezing is the opposite approach. Red mites are also killed by extreme cold. In very cold climates, moving infested equipment outdoors during winter can freeze and kill mites. Cold treatment requires temperatures well below freezing, sustained for several days. Essential oils have acariciidal properties. Eucalyptus, tea tree, neem, and lavender oils can be diluted in water and sprayed on loft surfaces. The strong scent repels mites and some components kill them. Mix about 10 to 20 drops of essential oil per liter of water, shake well and spray liberally. Reapply frequently as the effect diminishes as oils evaporate. Physical removal through extreme cleaning can significantly reduce mite population. Pressure washing the entire loft, scrubbing with brushes and soapy water, removing all debris and potential hiding places. This won't kill all mites but drastically reduces numbers, especially when combined with other methods. Light management can help. Red mites prefer darkness and are inhibited by light. Keeping lights on at night may reduce feeding activity, though this stresses birds by disrupting their sleep cycles, so it's not a long-term solution, but may help during active treatment periods. Predatory mites are being researched as biological control. Certain species of predatory mites feed on red mites. Introducing these into the loft may help control infestations. This is still experimental in pigeon lofts, but shows promise in poultry operations. The challenge is establishing and maintaining predator populations. Herbal repellents, bundles of fresh or dried herbs like lavender, wormwood, tansy, or rue hung in the loft, may repel mites to some degree. These aren't cures but may provide some protection, especially in mild infestation. Regular bathing of birds won't eliminate red mites, since mites don't live on the bird, but it can remove any mites that are on birds during the day and improve bird comfort and skin health. Which method should you use? For severe infestations, Chemical acaricides combined with extreme cleaning are most effective and fastest. For moderate infestations, or as ongoing prevention, diatomaceous earth essential oils and regular cleaning work well. For those who prefer completely non-toxic approaches, heat treatment and intensive physical cleaning can work but require more persistence. Many keepers use a combination, chemical treatment initially, to knock down a severe infestation, then switch to natural methods for long-term maintenance and prevention. Let's discuss prevention because preventing red mites is far easier than eliminating an established infestation. Quarantine all new birds for at least 2 weeks in a separate location, not your main loft. During quarantine, inspect them carefully for mites. Treat preventively if there's any suspicion. Only introduce them to the main flock after you're certain they're clean. Inspect all second-hand equipment before bringing it into your loft. Perches, nest boxes, cages from other lofts should be thoroughly cleaned and treated before use. If possible, freeze them, meme them, or treat with acaricide first. Discourage wild birds from nesting in or near your loft. Seal entry points. Use deterrents. Remove wild nests promptly. Wild birds are a major source of mite introduction. Control rodents. Rats and mice can carry mites. Keep feed secured. Eliminate rodent harborage. Use traps or rodenticides as needed. Maintain extreme cleanliness. Red mites thrive in dirty, debris-filled lofts. Regular cleaning removes hiding places and potential mite habitat. Sweep and remove droppings frequently. Keep surfaces smooth and clean. Use mite-resistant loft design. Smooth surfaces are harder for mites to colonize than rough wood. Metal or plastic perches are better than wood. If using wood, treat or paint it to seal cracks. Avoid hollow tubes as perches unless sealed at ends. Minimize cracks, crevices, and joints where mites hide. Well-constructed, tight lofts with few hiding places are less vulnerable. Regularly apply preventive treatments. Even without a current infestation, periodic application of diatomaceous earth or essential oil sprays to the loft creates a hostile environment for mites. Monitor constantly. Regular nighttime inspections catch infestations early before they explode. Check high-risk areas, nest boxes during breeding season, new perches, areas where new birds are housed. Maintain good ventilation. Mites thrive in warm, humid conditions. Good airflow and lower humidity reduce mite survival and reproduction. Avoid overcrowding. More birds mean more blood meals and faster mite reproduction. Adequate space helps limit mite population growth. Educate yourself about what red mites look like and how to detect them. Many keepers have never actually seen red mites and wouldn't recognize an infestation. Study images, know what to look for. Visit other lofts with caution. If you know a loft has mite problems, avoid visiting or take extreme precautions. Change clothes and shower before returning to your loft. Let me share a real case that illustrates how devastating red mites can be and how effective proper treatment is. A racing keeper contacted me because his entire young bird team was performing terribly. Out of 20 young birds, none were winning, several were dying, and the rest were lethargic and losing weight. He treated for worms, coccidia, respiratory infections. Nothing helped. I visited his loft during the day and it looked clean. Birds looked decent, but I noticed birds seemed uncomfortable in nest boxes, and some had pale skin. I came back that night with a flashlight. The loft was infested. Every crack in the wooden perches had mites crawling out. The nest boxes were swarming with thousands of mites. The walls had mites moving on them. It was one of the worst infestations I'd seen. We implemented an aggressive protocol, removed all birds temporarily to a clean holding area, removed all perches and nest boxes from the loft, pressure washed the entire loft interior, treated all surfaces with permethrin spray focusing on every crack and crevice, treated all perches and nest boxes separately, soaking them in permethrin solution. After drying, applied diatomaceous earth to all surfaces, returned birds to loft, repeated permethrin treatment after 1 week, repeated again after another week, continued weekly application for a month. Additionally, treated the birds themselves with a light permethrin spray before returning them to the cleaned loft. Within 2 weeks, the birds looked different. More alert, better feather condition, gaining weight. Within a month, they were performing. Several went on to win races that season. The transformation was dramatic. The keeper couldn't believe these were the same birds. They weren't weak birds. They were good birds being drained by parasites. Every night, that's the insidious nature of red mite. They kill silently, invisibly, progressively. The birds suffer, but can't tell you why. They just decline until they die or until you discover and eliminate the parasites. So what should you do right now? Tonight after dark, go to your loft with a bright flashlight. Inspect perches, nest boxes, and birds themselves. Look for tiny moving dots, reddish or grayish mites. Check cracks and crevices. Even if you don't see mites, run a white cloth along cracks and see if you pick up any smears or specks. If you find mites, don't panic, but act immediately. Decide on your treatment approach based on severity. For mild infestations, aggressive DE application and cleaning may suffice. For moderate to severe infestations, use acaricides for quick knockdown, then maintain with DE and cleaning. Treat at least 3 times, 7 to 10 days apart. Clean the loft thoroughly before and during treatment. Monitor carefully. Check weekly for several months to ensure elimination. Implement preventive measures to keep mites from returning. If you don't find mites tonight, that's excellent. But don't become complacent. Implement preventive strategies. Quarantine new birds. Use DE app preventively. Keep the loft clean. Monitor regularly. Red mites can be introduced at any time, so vigilance is key. These parasites are a nightmare, literally attacking your birds while they sleep, but they're controllable. With knowledge, vigilance, and proper treatment, you can keep your loft free of red mites and your birds healthy, comfortable, and safe. If this video helped you, please share it with other pigeon keepers. Red mites are extremely common, and many keepers are dealing with them without even knowing it. Your sharing might save someone's flock. Leave a comment if you have experience with red mites or questions about control methods. Your insights help others. Subscribe to Pigeon Healthy for information that protects your birds from hidden threats. Thank you for watching. Check your loft tonight. Protect your birds and sleep knowing they're safe from the nighttime horror.